Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Creative Adventure. Now, I opened the last episode by pointing out that none of the houses in this village have been decorated on the inside yet, and by the end of that episode, well, we weren't any further along. So, that's definitely something I want to work on in this episode. Before I do that though, I would quite like to make these 3 market stalls just so I can decorate those as well. Now, there is a little trick that I use when building these, and I want to quickly just share it with you guys. So I'm just going to quickly build the frame of it first. Now, unfortunately, the trick that I use is exclusive to creative mode. So if you're playing in survival, unfortunately, you can't do it. Just, I think that needs to be 2 blocks high, and then these are, whoops. Yeah, they're also 2. Okay, so that's the frame of it built. Now I'm just going to add a roof. So I'm thinking for this one, it's going to be red and white. So I'm just going to start from the outside and work my way in. Now, this is where the little trick sort of comes into play. So I want to have a layer of carpets going across the top here. Now I can place the ones on the edges because they've got a block underneath. But for these ones here, I can't actually place anything because it needs a supporting block. Now what people typically do is they'll get string and they'll stick a line blocks down, place the string across, delete the blocks out, and then they will place the carpet on the string, which, you know, works quite well. Now, to be fair, you can't really see it unless you're right up close to it. But I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I don't like seeing this line. So what I want is I want these 3 carpets to stay there without being able to see anything underneath. So in order to do this, I am going to need a couple of items. The first thing I'm going to need is the trusty debug stick. And then the second thing we're going to need is any kind of wall. Now, just out of habit, I always use the red sandstone wall, but I don't actually think it matters which one you use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of these string blocks that I've placed. And I'm going to replace it with red sandstone instead, or red sandstone wall. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my carpets down. And then we're essentially going to change the properties of the wall so that you can't see it. So using the left button on the mouse, I'm just going to cycle through the properties until we select the up property. There we go, it's set to true. If I right click, it's going to change it from true to false. So essentially just the central part just disappears. I'm then going to select west. So if I'm just going to try west, there we go. And because it's only the west portion of the wall that was visible, it's completely disappeared. So looking at the remaining 2 walls, this one is made up of east and west, and this one is just made of east. So I'm going to get rid of the west one on that side. Then I'm going to cycle through and I'm going to get rid of east as well. And there we go. So the sandstone walls are still there, but you just can't see them. Now if you ever want to get these blocks back, because they are still there, but we just can't interact with them, you need to update a block sort of adjacent to them. So if I delete this this fence out now, there you go, it's updated all of the blocks again. So all I need to do is just quickly redo what I've done. And there we go. So the final thing now for me is just to add some banners at the sides, just to sort of give it like a droopy look, if you like. I mean, it's not amazing, but I'm fairly happy with how that's turned out, so I'm going to do the same just for the other 2. So yeah, here we are. Gone for a different range of colours and stuff. I don't know what these are going to sell yet. I just knew I wanted to put them in, so I'll have to think of something. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how they've turned out. I will probably come back and finish decorating these later when I've actually sat there and thought what I want people to sell here. So for now, I would like to move on to another little decorating trick, this time using item frames. Now, one thing I like doing is adding an item frame to blocks that have torches on the side of them, and then adding a block to that item frame. It's just a small little detail that makes it look like the torch is being attached to the wall by that block. Now, I don't actually like the item frame being there, so what we can do is we can actually go ahead and get rid of it. If we look at the item frame that we want to change, we can type in /data merge entity, and then when we press space, where we've got our target selector, at the top you can see there's a long string of numbers and letters. Now this is called a UUID. It stands for Universally Unique Identifier. Basically, it's just a unique code which references this specific item frame. So if we had like 10 million item frames out there, we could enter this specific ID to always pick up the same item frame. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and press tab, which will just autofill the UUID. And now this is the part where we enter the properties that we want to change. If we go ahead and stick some squiggly brackets in, inside these squiggly brackets, if we type in invisible : currently the state is set to 0B. Now I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the B stands for, but if we go ahead and change 0 to 1, that is then going to turn it invisible. We can take this a step further by giving ourselves an item frame that already has this property built into it using the following code on screen. I'll stick it in the description as well if you want to copy and paste it from there. So what I can do is I can go ahead and give myself this item frame, and when I put it down, it will automatically be invisible, and I can just go ahead and stick a block straight onto it. Unfortunately though, if I set myself to adventure mode, I can go ahead and I can actually rotate the block. And not only can I rotate it, but I can actually punch it out. And obviously I don't want people to do that. So what we can do again is we can look at the item frame, even though it's not visible, type in data, merge, entity. I'm then going to specify that specific item frame. But then rather than put in invisible, I'm going to put fixed : 1B and enter that. And now the item frame has been fixed in place, so I can't knock it off and I can't rotate it. We can take this one more step further by giving ourselves an item frame, which is not only invisible, but it also has a block already in it, which is fixed in place, using this code on the screen. Again, it'll be in the description if you want to steal it. So, if I go ahead and give myself this item frame, every time I put this down, it's already set to invisible, it's already got the block that I want inside it, and it's already fixed in place, so people in adventure mode can't then go and delete it. So all I need to do now is just to go around all the torches, just adding this in. Now I've currently got it set to oak wood. If you want to use any other block, simply just change the words oak wood in the command to a block of your choice, and it should work just fine. As I've been flying around all the houses just updating the torches, I've come to this storage area and I've noticed that some of the blocks are attached to the fence. Now I can go ahead and use the debug stick just to detach them. I know it's like a tiny little detail, but honestly I feel like it's the small details that make them out just that extra bit better. Now whilst I'm here, I may as well just chuck in a few decorative heads, so we'll go in and stick an oak log there, maybe some smaller oak logs just down there, and now we've got a little hay bale that we can stick, yeah, just there. Now, shout out to Slayer8157, because on my last video they commented saying that if you go up to a block, or like a place to play a head, and then press Control and pick block, you will actually pick up the same head and not the default Steve one. How the hell did I not know that? Thanks for sharing, because this is exactly what I want. You know I don't know everything, and it is cool learning little tricks like that. That is definitely going to come in handy at some points. Now fortunately I still need the library of player heads back at the admin hub, so it thankfully doesn't render it completely useless, but that is yeah, it will save me having to go back there if heads that I want are sort of nearby. I'm going to stick a couple of oak logs just on a few of the trees just to make it look like they've got, or they had, little branches sticking out. And what we can also do is we can stick down an item frame and then stick the head on top of that, so it'll actually appear like a much smaller one. Of course, I'll have to lock that one in place manually. And there we go. Yeah, I've been putting it off for long enough now. I think it's finally time I started decorating some of the inside of the houses. For no particular reason, I've just decided to start with this one. Now, I'm not going to overthink it. It's just going to be a bog standard classic Minecraft house. Get the signs on there for the arms. Then I'm thinking I'm going to stick a table in here. So we're going to use upside down stairs. And then I'm just going to use the debug stick just to change the shape so it's just half of the top of the stair, just so it's sort of like a table leg, basically. So there you go, that looks slightly more table-y. Whack a pot just on there. You can maybe have like a little kitchen countertop over here. And then just whack some bread down or something. Of course, I do need to lock this in place, so fixed 1B. Right, so the bread is locked. Let's go ahead and stick some books down. Finishing touch, if I can find it. And there we go. So it's not nothing amazing. I don't want to overthink it and spend hours trying to make the perfect house because I've got quite a few to fill and I don't want to spend particularly too long on it. At this point in time, I don't imagine any sort of quest NPCs being in here or anything. It's probably just going to be just a single villager who, apart from speaking every now and then, probably won't do all that much. I'm not going to spawn the villagers in at the minute. I'm going to save that for another day. But yeah, all I've got to do now is just go around all of the houses and just, yeah, decorate them sort of like this. Don't worry, I'm not going to bore you by decorating them all on camera, so here's just a quick few before and afters. So I've had a little think about what I can put in these 3 market stalls, and I've sort of got an idea now. It's nothing too exciting. This first one is just going to sell loaves of bread. This one is going to sell berries and apples, and then this one is going to sell wooden swords. I'll quickly just do one. It's not going to be anything too extravagant. It's just going to be really simple. Stick some bread on the counter. Then we're going to have a barrel at the back, just where they're keeping all of their spare stock. And then just a loaf of bread lay ahead. That on the back. Yeah. Yeah, and then there's going to be just a villager that's just going to stand here all day and all night just selling bread. I think I'm probably going to limit the stock to like, I don't know, 10 loaves of bread or something. And then I'm going to play around with command blocks and see if I can get the command blocks to replenish the stock over time. Only because the villagers, I believe they restock every time they go to sleep, and this villager will never have access to a bed. So yeah, I'm hoping I can update it with commands. I've not actually tried yet, but that's the plan at least. Now, I've put a barrel down as part of the decoration, but obviously you can interact with it. You know, if you right click, you can open the container. I don't actually want players to do this. You know, I don't want a fresh, brand new player just to walk over here, right click on the barrel, and there's like a ton of stuff that someone else has left in here that they can just pick up and run off with. So I want to lock it. Now, in order to do this, simply look at the block that you want to change and type /data merge, and then this time I'm going to do block. Now, these coordinates are the barrel that I'm looking at. So if I just go ahead and tab those in, then we're going to put the squiggly brackets in, and then inside those brackets we're going to type in lock, colon, and then some speech marks, and then inside those speech marks we essentially want to put in like a little password to unlock the chest. Now I'm just going to call it locked, just because it's easy to remember, I suppose. And there we go, modified block data of the barrel. So if I right click on it, the barrel is locked and now no one can get in it. The only way I can open it now is if I have an item with a name that matches the lock value. So because I have an item here called locked, if I go ahead and right click on it now it will open. So I can only open it with an item named locked. Now, I'm never going to name any of my items locked, so this locked value is just a generic code that I'm going to use just to lock all of my chests where I don't want players to ever open them. Obviously this works with chests and trap chests as well. It doesn't work on ender chests, I don't think. Now if we use Slayer's advice and press Control and pick block, if we now put it down, this one's also locked, and that one's also locked, and that one's locked. So you can pick block a locked chest and then put down as many as you want without having to put the lock value in every single time, which is quite handy. Now, that brings me on to a nice little trick, which to be fair, I'm guilty of not even using myself, and I really need to start doing it. And that is using saved hotbars. So in the inventory, we've got our saved hotbars tab here. As you can see, I've not used any yet. We've got a total of 9 different hotbars we can save. Now, I could save this hotbar that I've currently got with the locked chest in it, but I'm just going to quickly go and get a few more items that I use quite regularly. So here I've got quite a few items that I use in sort of like the technical builds quite a lot. So I've got the debug stick, command blocks, I've got invisible item frames, I've got locked chests and barrels, and then also barrier blocks. Especially these 3, you obviously need commands and stuff to spawn them in. But rather than spawning them in every time, what we can do is we can save this as a toolbar. So if I press C1, that has saved the hotbar now in the first slot. If I type /clear just to get rid of it, all I need to do now is to type or press the keys X1 and it loads that back in. So I've now got locked chests and locked barrels just like that without ever having to type any code in ever again. If you're ever going to do this, just a little tip for you, don't call your chests and barrels locked chests and locked barrels, just because when you right click on it, it'll say locked chest is locked and it just looks a little bit stupid. So yeah, just keep those as they are, chest and barrels. But yeah, that's a cool little trick that I definitely need to start using myself. Anyway, I digress. This is just a quick fruit stall that I've knocked up, just selling apples and berries. And then finally we've got the wooden sword stall. So what I could do is I could just stick down a bunch of invisible item frames, just having swords going all the way across. But there is one final trick that we can do, and it involves using armor stands. Now, I'm using an armor stand generator that I just found online, literally just Googled armor stand generator, and this one I'm using is on gamergeeks.net. Again, link in description. Now, my aim here is to create just like a sword that's laying over the top of the counter, and it'll be like a life-sized sword rather than just like one of the small ones in an item frame. So I'm going to start by going to items, and then I'm actually going to stick this in the head slot because I'm tempted to say it'll be easy to work with, although I've not really played around with these, so I don't actually know. Yeah, we're going to start with the head slot. If I come back to entity, what I want to do is I want to tilt the head all the way back this way, I think. We want to get 270 degrees, so if you see down here, the head is now at 270 degrees. Then I also want to turn it, and I don't know how much I'm going to turn it at the minute. I'm just going to play around with these settings to just kind of get a feel for what I need. So we'll try that for now. And then let's go and see how that looks in the game. Alright, so let's throw down a command block. Paste the code in, and then trigger it. So here we are. At the minute, it's facing this direction, and I want it to face sort of that direction, or at least going across the counter. So I'm just going to play around with the settings until I can sort of get the sword to face the direction that I want. That's roughly facing the direction I want it to face now. So what we can do is we can go ahead and we can move this command block. I'm going to move it underneath here now. Stick that in there, get a button on it, copy the command out of there. It's going to spawn it in there, but it falls down. In order to prevent it from dropping slightly when we summon it, if we go to the Properties tab, we can enable the no gravity setting. We don't really need to pay any attention to the rest of these settings, to be fair. Now, I also do want to make this invisible, but for now I'm going to leave it blank because I might not get this right on my next go and I'll need to remove the armor stand, so it's easier just to destroy it when you can see it rather than having to make it visible every time you need to make a correction. Now, one very important part here is the lock slot interaction. So at the minute, this is completely unlocked. Anyone can come along, and even though you can't see it, you can still put armor and weapons onto it. So I'm just going to go ahead and enable everything, just so it's fully locked and you can't add, remove, or replace any items that exist on it. So now that's fully locked. So we can now copy this code, paste the code in now. There we go, it's not dropped down. It looks like it's too far down, so I can get rid of that. And if we go ahead and we can change the y-axis to relative plus 0.4 blocks. Let's just try that. You can see it's probably slightly too high actually, so you change that to 0.3. Well, there we go. Now it's slightly too low, so probably somewhere in between. So if I do, I'm thinking 0.34 maybe, and that looks like the perfect height, to be fair. Looks pretty damn close. Yeah, that'll do nicely. So now it's at the right height. I just need to bring it back slightly, and then probably, yeah, we might keep it where it is, to be fair. So I think it needs to come back a bit on the z-axis. So let's just try minus 0.5. Let's just go with that. Yeah, that's looking good. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 0.66. Yep, that is looking good now. I don't think I can spawn a block in there. Let's just try getting rid of that. Spawning it in. So, yeah, that sword is pretty nicely placed now. However, we obviously don't want this armor stand. So what we can do is, I could go back into the web page and change it, but all I'm going to do is I'm just going to, in here, I'm just going to do comma invisible 1b, and then hopefully, there we go. We now have an invisible armor stand right here, holding that sword in place, but no one is ever going to know. Now, because the armor stand is in the way, I don't think I can set this block now. So all I'm going to do is just use the set block command. So because I'm looking at that gravel block, all I need to do is change this by 1 gravel, and there we go. That is pretty cool. So we've got 2 different size swords on the counter. I do want to add another one in as well, just sort of like on the floor here, resting against sort of that birch block there. But rather than try and spawn it inside the cramped conditions inside the tent, I'm going to practice sort of doing it just out here. Okay, so that is the exact look I want it to go for, obviously minus the visible armor stand. So it should just be a case of just copying or moving that command block into the ground under there. So hopefully we just stick that down. add the tag on at the end to make it invisible. Add a button, power it, and there we go. Oh, that looks well cool. I really like that. And then we can just go ahead and just seal it up. And yeah, there we go. Oh god, I'm well happy with that. So I took a little break from playing earlier, and whilst I was away from my computer, I thought up of a really cool idea, which I'm probably going to replace this chest with. Only thing is, it's going to take a little while to do, so I'm not going to do it now, but I will likely replace that chest at some point. But yeah, proper happy with that. I think this is probably a pretty good point to wrap up this episode. As always, thank you and well done if you have reached the end. I appreciate this one's probably been a little bit more boring than the others because they're certainly been very technical. Most importantly, I hope you guys have learned something. I'm learning all the time, and I really do hope I'm sort of sharing that with you lot. So, yeah, thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. See you later.